Israel and Hamas have agreed to a pause in their 2-year war and the release of the remaining hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Israel's cabinet and parliament are expected to approve this plan at some point today. It calls for Hamas to release all 20 living hostages in the coming days in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. And we want to bring in Scripps News national correspondent Alex Miller for more on this. Alex, you have been on this story from the very beginning, and you have gotten to know and build relationships with many of these hostage families. So how are they reacting today to this news?
There is just jubilation from the families that I've spoken to. If you look all over Israel, there is just such excitement there. They feel like they have crossed a major barrier that they have been fighting for the last 2 years, trying to get these hostages home. Of course, there is some trepidation that this could fall apart. But if you look at these photos and these videos of family members, of former hostages, showing how excited they are at this news. This is from overnight. Obviously, this deal was agreed to overnight. I've been texting with family members, Maritza, leading up to this all week. They just kept telling me they are holding their breath. They were so nervous leading up to this because this really was such a crossroads for them. And Rachel Goldberg-Polin, the mother of Hirsch Goldberg-Polin, put out a little clip on Instagram I want to play for you. She has really been at the forefront of this, despite the fact that her son was murdered in a Hamas tunnel more than a year ago. Listen to what she said.
We woke up this morning to the incredible news, and we are all so hopeful and filled with prayer and anticipation. And we are just saying thank you.
Today has complications because so many in this region have paid the heaviest price. But for today, we celebrate. We embrace all those families who will be reunited with their loved ones, and we look ahead towards better, more hopeful, more peaceful days.
And Maritza, I just got off with Rachel and John myself, so we'll have a little bit more of my interview with them coming up in the next few hours. But essentially what they told me is they are so relieved to see this next phase. They've been pushing and pushing, but that they've gotten messages from family members who are, of course, the ones whose children are living, that they're so excited that this is about to happen. But this mixed emotion from those family members who have been pushing for 2 years to get their children's bodies home. And after all of this, they're going to have their child brought back in a body bag, and just how painful that really is, that knowing that that is really what's coming for them. And then there's this other issue that we're seeing about the potential that some of those deceased hostages may not be found, and that there's some real panic happening within the hostage family community that could really be a reality.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, Alex, when we were listening to them talk about this, is that this is a complicated emotional journey that while they're so happy that this deal's announced and these hostages are coming home, there's also the very real reality that their son is not, that he's no longer with us, and that he was killed. And it's got to be, as a mother, I can't imagine the pain and what that must be like. Let's talk, though, about who will be released. What do we know about the actual surviving hostages and who they are?
Yeah, and Maritza, Rachel told me, they've been going 1,000,000 miles an hour since October 7th, and they haven't had a time to grieve or figure out what their life looks like without Hirsch, because they've just been moving and moving. And so after, all of this ends, there's going to be a lot for not only them, but other families to figure out. And what we know so far about those hostages that are coming home, according to President Trump, is that all hostages will be released at once. According to him, it's the living and the dead. Right now, we know that there are 20 hostages that they believe are alive. This number has stayed relatively the same for a number of months. I have been tracking all of these hostages for the last 2 years, and those are the ones that we know that they believe are alive. Then there is another group of 26 to 28 that they believe have died, either were killed on October 7th, like Americans Omer Nutra and Itai Chen. They have been according to the Israeli government, they believe they died on October 7th, along with many others. Others killed in captivity. There's still one woman remaining. And then there are 2 hostages who their whereabouts have been unknown for this entire time. One hostage that we haven't heard from at all since October 7th. There's been no sign of life, whether through a hostage video or through other released hostages who've told family members that they saw certain hostages. And then there's one other hostage who's we saw a hostage video from finally released yesterday, though that was from almost 2 years ago. Their statuses are unknown. So right now we know the Israeli Security Cabinet is meeting. Once that happens, we will start to see all of this change. But we do know that, according to the American government, there will be a joint task force put forward to help locate those deceased bodies between the United States and Egypt, that they will provide the heavy equipment that is needed to locate some of these hostages. It makes it difficult. Of course, we're dealing with a terrorist organization, and so there's questions about whether they're being truthful, because we saw them not be truthful during some of these previous exchanges, including with the Bibas children, giving the wrong bodies over initially. So there's questions about that. There's questions about whether they really don't know where these people are, whether there's been so much destruction in Gaza that it's difficult to locate them. So all of that is still very much up in the air. When these living hostages are brought back, they're going to be brought directly to the hospital, where they will be assessed, and some of them, depending on their condition, will be flown to other hospitals, airlifted to other hospitals, because, as we've seen with some of these videos, including Eviatar David, who's we saw a video recently of him digging his own grave. They are incredibly, incredibly malnourished.
Yeah, just thinking about the road ahead. Thinking about the road ahead is a difficult one. But this isn't the end of the deal, Alex. So walk us through what we know so far, what still needs to be wrapped up here.
So the Israeli Security Cabinet is meeting. There needs to be a full vote with the Israeli parliament, the Knesset there. There has to be approval from the highest court, because they are releasing prisoners as well. So there's more to this exchange. And then within the next couple of days, we will start to see these hostages released. President Trump says it's Monday. There's other reports that it could be earlier than that. But by Monday, all living and dead hostages are supposed to be released. And there will also be the release of these Palestinian prisoners, 250 serving life sentences, likely many for killing Israelis. 1,700 reportedly, according to Israeli media, that would also be released. They've been arrested since October 7th for various alleged crimes there. So there's a lot of Palestinian prisoners that are going to be going back in exchange for these Israeli hostages. That's also something that I asked Rachel and John about, how they feel having these released prisoners go back, especially when there was a previous exchange that let Yahya Sinwar, who was the mastermind of October 7th, out. And they said, there's a certain point where you have to make these kinds of deals. You have to cross the Rubicon, as Rachel told me, and that's what they were prepared to do. They believe that they've gotten the assurances, not only from the United States, but from the Arab world, that there will be protection for Israel on this. But then there are still a lot of questions about the next phase of this deal, about what dismantling Hamas looks like, whether they will disarm, and what the rebuilding of Gaza looks like. So while this is, welcome news that we will see these hostages coming home, there are still so many questions left about what this potential rest of this deal will look like.
Yeah, a lot of question marks, like you said, that we are waiting for answers to. National correspondent Alex Miller, live in New York, thank you so much.